September 7th, 2025. And of course, a lot of things are going on in the world, and we'll be talking about that here on Pod TV. We'll see who else joins us as well, but a number of things are taking place, and of course, we'll be covering those right here on this particular network and seeing what folks' reactions are to a number of these news stories. A German man suspected in Madeleine McCann's disappearance is released from prison. So, the prime suspect in the Madeleine McCann case, Christian Buchner, has been released from the German prison. Israel pounds Gaza City as fears mount for those inside. Israeli military begins its ground offensive in Gaza City as thousands of Palestinians flee, and that was on yesterday. But those thousands of Palestinians flee Gaza City as the Israeli troops continue to advance. So definitely that is something that is going on as well. EU unveils plan to hit Israel with tariffs and sanctions amid the Gaza war outcry. An Israeli minister attacks EU's proposed morally politically distorted sanctions and all along those lines. And EU proposes suspension of trade concessions with Israel over Gaza war. And SAR threatens to hit back at Europe if proposed sanctions are implemented. And gold worth $700,000 has been stolen from Paris's Natural History Museum amid a string of similar heists. And the U.S. reacts to confrontation between China and a treaty ally. So Chinese-Philippine ships collide near disputed shoal in South China Sea. And of course, Philippines are continuing to protest China's plan for a nature reserve at that hotly disputed shoal. And China did say it fired water cannons at Philippine ships in the South China Sea on yesterday. Navalny's widow says new lab evidence proves he was poisoned in the prison. And folks are asking who is Sushila Karki, Nepal's new 73-year-old interim prime minister. Nepal's new government calls elections its critics cry foul. Nepal's prime minister appoints 3 new ministers as interim government prepares to hold fresh elections in March. So Nepal picks 3 with reformist credentials for that interim cabinet as of now. And Netanyahu told Trump about Doha strike in advance. He didn't say no, is what the report is saying. And Israel's Qatar attack was a costly failure. Trump says he was not informed by Netanyahu before Israel's strike in Qatar, and the Gulf states want Donald Trump to choose them or Israel. U.S. military confirms it sent observers to Russia and Belarus war games. Russian offensive campaign assessment is what some people are talking about, and India joins the Russia-Belarus drills amid nuclear weapons launch rehearsal, and definitely that is something that people are talking about as well. And some people are asking what a no-fly zone over Ukraine would mean for the West, and Russia is responsible for home damage during a drone incursion, is what Tusk does. And residents of eastern Poland feel Russia's war in Ukraine is coming to them. Poland calls for NATO-backed no-fly zone over Ukraine. And UN Commission of Inquiry accuses Israel of genocide in Gaza and urges global action. UN Commission says Israel is committing genocide in Gaza, and definitely there is talk about shaming Israel for Gaza genocide could embolden it unless it's punished. The UN inquiry finds top Israeli officials incited genocide in Gaza. And Nepal Gen Z protests, politicians get rich while we suffered. So definitely that's something that people are talking about as well. And some people are asking, as far as Nepal, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka, is South Asia fertile for a Gen Z revolution? So we'll have to see if Dr. Sharif comes in, his thoughts about that, because I know he talks to a lot of young people through his work in various universities. And definitely Bloomberg is saying Nepal's new power brokers should worry India and China. And 120 land and environmental defenders have been killed or disappeared in Latin America. We're still in the dark on missing land defender and the deadly toll of land conflict on indigenous people. New threats target land and environmental rights defenders, and defending the earth is deadly work. A new report illuminates how much. And Malawi counts votes in a presidential election where it looks like economic turmoil was one of the top talking points and all along those lines. So Malawi counts votes after presidential elections amid economic crisis. And they are voting for a president with economic woes looming large. So voters await result in the presidential poll dominated by economic woes. And Israel strikes Houthi-held port of Hodeidah in response to drone and rocket fire. Israeli launches a series of strikes on Yemen's Red Sea port, and Israel strikes the Yemen port of Hodeidah as Houthi rebels activate air defense. And Turkey, Spain, and 14 others warn against attacks on Gaza Sumud flotilla. So aid flotilla carrying Greta Thunberg set sail from Tunisia to challenge the Gaza blockade. And global Sumud flotilla set sail from Tunisia to break that Gaza blockade. We'll see if this goes on. Two ships have set sail from Greece to join the Gaza-bound flotilla as it departs from Tunisia. So that's just some of the things going on in the news. And there's some people that are also reporting why the EU won't hit China with the 100% tariffs that Trump wants. So Trump has a point about Europe bankrolling Russia, and Bazant says U.S. won't hit China with tariffs over Russian oil unless Europe goes first. So they're asking Europe to go first. And the U.S. sanctions an Iranian financiers and others over $100 million in cryptocurrency transfers. So U.S. sanctions target financing of Iran's military is what the Treasury is saying. So targeting financial network generating millions for Iranian military and additional actions in support of maximum pressure on Iran. And South Sudan leaders engage in systematic looting in the poor nation is what the UN is saying. So government corruption fuels human rights crisis in South Sudan, independent panel has found. So South Sudan's wealth has been stolen at the top is what the UN is warning. Predatory elite has plundered South Sudan's oil revenue, pushing the country to the brink of war. And Greenland's defenses are being bolstered against Russia and China, but Trump may be the real target. Denmark leads an exercise in Greenland with Russia in mind and all along those lines. And Denmark pledges $253 million for Greenland's infrastructure and healthcare. So Denmark leads the drills in Greenland at times of tensions with the U.S. And the Pope is saying Gaza requires another solution as people flee the city. And Pope decries unacceptable plight of Palestinians in Gaza and urges a truce. Pope speaks out in support of Gazians being forcibly displaced from their lands again. Pope Leo says Russia drone incursion into Poland is concerning. And alarmed and dismayed, judge is powerless to stop Trump deportation. So federal judge declines to intervene for migrants deported to Ghana. We talked a little bit about that yesterday as well. And one person said, we lost our voice. I left the Tommy Robinson rally with the worrying realization this movement is only going to get bigger. Elon Musk says UK needs revolutionary change of government in speech to anti-migrant rally. So he's even been getting involved in politics over there as well. So lots going on in that space and along those lines. And the man known as the Tinder Swindler is arrested in Georgia. So Tinder Swindler, con artist Simone Lebev has been arrested in Georgia. The Netflix Tinder Swindler arrested after allegedly stealing $50,000 from various, it says woman as in singular, but it might have been various women. But anyway, he has been arrested. And Freeland quits Carney cabinet to become Ukraine in envoy. So Canada's Christy Freeland quits the cabinet to become the Ukraine envoy. So that is something that we're seeing as well. And some folks are thinking that Bloomberg thinks Putin finally went too far. Did Putin finally overplay his hand with Ukraine is one of the things that they are asking as well. So a lot's going on in the world in that sense and all along those lines. And we've got some U.S. news as well. So I'll get to that and then I'll bring my fellow panelists on and see what they've got to say about a number of these stories and what their thoughts are about what's happening and all along those lines. So definitely there's a lot of things that are taking place and all along those lines. So we'll definitely be hearing a number of these stories and seeing what folks have got to say about that as well. So definitely that is something that people are talking about and definitely along those lines. As a matter of fact, recently the Pope said modern Christian martyrs show the power of love in the face of hatred and all in that way. And I think that there's something like 2,000 martyrs that have been put out there. I want to say since to the year 2000, but I'm going to try to double check that and all along those lines and get to some of the other news stories as well. But definitely, I know there's even some people have been looking at Charlie Kirk as being somewhat of a martyr for his movement and all along those lines. But it'll be interesting to see what folks have to say about a number of these stories as I get to them and all along those lines. But like I said, lots going on in the world, and we're definitely glad to be covering them here on Pod TV and see what folks have to say about a number of these stories that are out there and along those lines. So get ready to bring in my folks and see what they've got to say about what's going on in the world. We know Charlie Kirk is staying in the news, as is other people as well. So like I said, a lot is transparent in the world. So we're getting ready to bring in folks and see what they've got to say about a variety of these stories that are out there and all along those lines. So like I said, a lot is transpiring, and we're always glad to be covering these various stories on Pod TV and to see what folks have got to say about these various stories that exist and all along those lines. Trump, Vance, other prominent political figures will be speaking at the Sunday Stadium event honoring Charlie Kirk. So definitely we're going to have a lot of folks that will be speaking in that regard. And Spencer Cox calls for civility spark introspection, and there's been, of course, some GOP backlash. Cory Booker clashes with Kash Patel at a hearing on the FBI and Senate Democrats. Patel was testifying really for an audience of one. President Trump is what they are saying. And FBI chief defends handling of the Kirk probe, the Epstein files, in a very combative hearing and all along those lines. And Democrat XP will win special election to fill the seat of the slain Minnesota lawmaker Melissa Hordman. So that Democrat will win the race, and definitely look like that will restore the Minnesota House tie and everything like that. And government shutdown odds go up after party leaders exchange fire. Democrats oppose stopgap bill, raising odds of a shutdown. And Obama calls Kirk murder horrific and says that a president should kill people together. Obama condemns the Charlie Kirk killing, says tragedy being used to silence a discussion, and Obama says America is at an inflection point after the killing of Charlie Kirk and Melissa Hortman. So definitely that's something that we're seeing in the news as well. And Abigail Spanberger gets show-up support from two former GOP lawmakers in her bid to be the Virginia governor. And Trump has begun a historic state visit to UK amid pomp and protest. So the First Lady and the Princess, two high-profile but private women, prepare to meet on the world stage. Melania's hat, Kate's feather brooch, and other standout looks from the state visit. So it looks like there's a state visit and people are having interest in that. And Mexican Independence Day celebrations doubled as protests after ICE killing of Franklin Park's dad. So ICE officers in fatal Chicago shooting were not wearing body cameras. So lots going on in the world. So I'm going to bring in my people and see what they've got to say about a number of these stories. So I've got Rick Rosner with me. I've got Sasha Starr. I see if Nick joins me. And who else might come in?
All right. So Trump's popularity is currently at about 44%. If it remains that low, and I don't see it improving, he will lose the House. So Trump is doing a couple things to avoid losing the House in the midterms and also to distract people from Epstein. So this Charlie Kirk thing happened at an opportune time for them to flood the zone, saying that it's leftists who committed the murder. They commit all the murders, which is not true. But for them to shut down left-leaning political speech because they think it'll help them in the midterms, along with redistricting red states, which Trump has been ordering states to do so that the states are safer for Republican candidates. So this is part of a campaign that will go on for longer than the next year. And it's to try to hold on to the House and to distract from Epstein. And the Epstein files are coming. There's a petition in the House of Representatives that has 217 signatures to release all the files. And once it hits 218, which is more than half of the House, they will have to release the files. And the Republicans are refusing to swear in new Democratic Party members who have been elected in special elections because they know once they do, they will sign the petition and the files will have to be released. So that's coming. They won't be able to hold off on swearing them in forever.
Yep, can't do that whatsoever. So we'll see how that's all plays out and everything like that. But yeah, there's a lot going on in that space. Sasha, what's going on in Ukraine? It looks like a lot's going on in that world. So, what is your take on this and all along those lines?
Well, what's interesting is that about a week ago, General Kellogg uh, publicly declared that, in fact, Ukraine is winning the war, not losing like a lot of Americans believe. They are winning the war. They're fighting war of 21st century, whereas Russia is fighting war 19th, maybe 20th century, no more than that. So Ukraine is getting more and more weapons and ammunition from the West, and they are producing incredible new armor with themselves, including the drones, very sophisticated, um and their own missiles, which can hit targets up to 3,000 kilometers with a deviation of no more than 14 meters from the target. That's incredible numbers, and Russia doesn't have anything close to that. And I think that Europe is now more and more leaning toward Ukraine as the only power in this world that can defend Europeans from Russian aggression. Now, the game that Trump and Putin are playing together is this. So Putin is doing all kind of provocations against Europe, such as sending 20 drones to Poland. Now, US is saying, well, there's nothing to worry about. It could have been a mistake. It could have been this or that. However, the message to Europeans is this. There are two scenarios. Either you stop supporting Ukraine, which will lead to the demolition of the Europe shortly after that, or you will continue to support Ukraine, but look what we are going to do to you. We are going to unleash drones and missiles, and you see what's happened to Ukraine. Same thing will happen to you. Do you really need it? So this is a game that Putin and Trump playing together because Europe is the uh, only target that continues to increasing its help to Ukraine. And if Putin and Trump can eliminate this target through sending incredible stupid letter to Europe saying that you have to increase your tariffs on China and stop buying Russian oil and gas products and so on. You know who is number 4 buyer of the Russian oil products? Is United States of America. Holland is number 12, France is number 13. So look at yourself first before sending the stupid letters. And of course, all that leads to Trump's visit to UK, where he is by far, the most hateful person in the world. And there are a lot of demonstrations and protests. And by far the most ridiculous thing what I've seen is that on the Windsor Castle, there is a tower. And I don't know how they did it, Englishmen, how they did it. They projected videos of Trump meeting Epstein and with what's her name, the convicted pedophile.
Ghislaine Maxwell.
Maxwell, yeah, that's right. I just couldn't. I wish I would spend a little bit more time whether Melania was also there, but I'm not sure about that. But Trump and it was going on for quite some time until finally British authorities were able to dismiss it. What I don't understand how King Charles is going to shake hand of Trump. He just shook hands with Putin just a few weeks ago. How he's going to do it and why they needed this visit. There are some political consideration, perhaps, but I think by a time when invitation was issued, which was at the beginning of summer sometimes, the U.S. stature in the world considerably came down. And if invitation would have been issued now, I don't think that UK would issue that invitation.
Yeah, that's interesting and everything. Hey, Jacoby, I had something I was going to bring up to you because you brought it up on this show several times and everything along those lines. And I kind of alluded to it earlier. I said 2000. It's actually probably been closer to 1700. But they said nearly 1,700 Christians have been recorded as martyrs since 2000, and Pope Leo the 14th paid tribute to them over the weekend doing a Jubilee celebration. But a cardinal from, I believe, Israel, I'm going to double check this, said something that I know you've been saying on our show for a number of times. He says that, and it was Cardinal Pera Batista Pizzabali, who said that the path to violence is smoothed by speech that degrades, then a path out of conflict will run through speech that honors. And so he's basically saying that we've got to end this idea of dehumanizing speech. So I'm thinking he might have been listening to you because he warned that years of dehumanizing rhetoric have helped pave the way for real world violence, and he called for a new language that opens horizons and new paths. So did you send a letter to the Pope, to the Cardinal?
No, but I mean, it's just obvious, and I'm glad he's being honest about it because that's what's going on. And until it changes, and investigations going on into the two hangings that just happened in Mississippi. What's there? There, you know, went after minorities. I mean, closing down HBU. Just the white man must fight back parades or rally. We have a problem. We have a major problem. And yes, a lot of the dehumanization of individuals. For example, did we know that another boat was evidently?
Yeah, I did hear that. I think I reported that last week.
Yesterday.
That? Yeah, yesterday. And it was the second boat.
So now we're just bombing boats that have people on them. Don't know what they're doing, but we're just bombing them. Oh, they could have drugs. We don't know because you've already, again, dehumanized individuals coming from that particular area and what they're doing. They could have been just seeking asylum, but no, right. You've already dehumanized them. So you can go ahead and according to.
So I talked to a guy at the gym who went to Harvard Law with John Roberts, the Chief Justice. I asked him if he's worried, and he's usually pretty chill. And the tides of history. He goes, "Yeah, I'm worried." And he said that the blowing up of the Venezuelan boats, without boats that we could stop and take the people prisoner, instead we're just dropping, a missile on them. He says that's the most disturbing thing of all the disturbing crap that's going on. And also that people are not suing the government to stop it, that people aren't particularly upset.
Yeah.
And if you I'm sorry.
Well, it's understandable that people aren't upset about any one thing because there's just nonsense and stuff to freak out about across so many different areas of government and public life.
And it's not just the
I mean,
dehumanizing.
check out last night. I think it was the one deputy somebody, one of the higher ups in the Trump administration was yesterday, because you can actually even look at Pam Bondi. They're legitimately looking at ways they're using Charlie Kirk's murder to demonize the Democrat Party and silence them by calling them now terrorists. They've been used, which I find ironic, because if you remember way back when Sarah Palin started, a lot of this extreme talk started hitting hard with Sarah Palin, because she had started the radical Muslims. Well, she didn't start it, but it really became amplified with her yelling radical Muslims, radical this, and that was part of the GOP mantra for a little while. Now it's the radical left. It's the same terminology, dehumanizing people, making them into terrorists. Now what they're doing is training people to call the Democrat Party terrorists. And now Pam Bondi and others high up in the Trump administration said that they're going to start jailing people. Jailing these same individuals that they're calling now terrorists, which are the Democrat Party. So therefore, now, if you take and tie all these things together, that's where the scary is, because the bombing is horrible and scary in itself, but now you're not giving people where did that come from? They're not giving people due process because you're already demonizing them in immigration. So now you've got people already on your side because you demonized immigrants so much that now you're bombing them, and there are people that don't even care that you're bombing them and actually cheering on the bombing of people without having due process. Now you're calling Democrat Party terrorists, and what did you call the drug dealers? You called the drug dealers terrorists. Oh, we're bombing them because they're terrorists. Now what are you going to do with the Democrat Party? You're saying that you're going to arrest now. These things are happening, and we have to connect the dots and be honest about it. But we're not. We're just, hey, we gotta be nice.
Well, speaking of connecting the dots and everything like that, hey, Rick, you got a young daughter and everything like that. College, not college age. She's actually, I think, in her 20s or something like that.
She's turned 30. So
30s. Yes, well, I knew she was in the late 20s, early 30s, and everything. But I was hoping Dr. Sharif was going to be here, because apparently there's a new push with Gen Z people, and they're wondering if they are frustrated about what's going on, and if they're not ready to come up in rebellion. We saw it in Nepal, but now they're saying Nepal, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka, which are all South Asian countries, might be fertile for a Gen Z revolution. And I'm thinking that could be the case even in other parts of the world as well. So I just wondering, when you talk
one thing, the U.S. is not set up well for revolution, which is probably good. We're just geographically too big and too diverse. When we had the Civil War, the U.S. was, I don't know, about 1/3 the size it is now, which made it possible to have a Civil War. Now, I don't know, it would just be, anyway. So, hold on, let's talk about what happened in Nepal. Yes. Nepal's, kind of semi-dictatorial government said no social media for you. They shut down access to all the major social media. And Gen Z rioted in the streets. And then the government sent, forces out, and they shot a few dozen protesters. And the protesters went crazy, and they burnt down Parliament, and they deposed the prime minister. Now they have a new prime minister. They have a new government. And so, yeah, you can't fuck over the people all the time.
Yeah, but when we fuck over the people, apparently we fuck over other things as well. If I can use that language also, since you use it, I'm going to borrow it also.
Sorry.
In that space, I'm just teasing, but in that space as well, because apparently we know that there's a lot of conflict in Beirut and in the Middle East, and of course we know what's going on in India. And I remember a while back there was a big story about a lot of stray dogs in India, and they were trying to figure out what to do with them. And now apparently in Beirut there's a lot of stray cats that are roaming around. So every time we go bombing and killing these people, I guess the animals that were their pets are the unintended victims and everything like that. So any thoughts around that? Because that's another story that I saw that came from NPR, but they're saying
So,
that yes, are
all right,
wrong.
I'm looking at a survey from CNN that's called Net Popularity of Socialism Among Democrats. In 2010, uh, it had a +7 favorability. Now it's got a +36% favorability. And there's a socialist candidate who's likely to get elected mayor of New York.
Yes.
And, you know, socialism isn't, I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world, but it's maybe not the best thing in America. I mean, but it wouldn't be happening. The growth in approval of socialism wouldn't be happening if the Republicans, who control all arms of government right now, would quit enriching billionaires at the expense of everybody else. People are pissed.
Well, is that,
Your voice is busted up.
let me see if I can fix it.
Yes,
Better because I'm in a bad area.
it's a little bit better.
All right, let me see because I'm almost out of this bad area. Is it better now?
It's much better.
now.
Oh, okay, cool. So the problem is that we have used socialism. Well, socialist has been used as another term to demonize people, and because they're using it as a buzzword and they don't know what actually socialism is. And if you look at our society today, we are living in a socialist and capitalist world based on how our systems of government work. I mean, the army itself is socialism. We have Social Security, which is socialism. We have the fire department, police department. Our services are socialist. Our public schools are set up in a socialist manner. Our hospitals, some of them are set up in a socialist manner. So we live in a quasi-socialist capitalist world. But what Mamdani is talking about is some other things that are in other areas that could work in that he feels that could work in New York. Yes, those are socialist things, but again, what he's talking about is already being used in other areas of the country. So it's not like it's something out of the ordinary, but people are treating it as if it's some crazy out of the ordinary. And that's where the education system needs to come into play, which is based on a socialist setup, needs to help out individuals understand these terms and actually what the individuals are proposing. So yeah, that's where that issue is.
We've always been a mix of capitalism and socialism. Public schools, public roads, public libraries, emergency services like fire departments, cops, ambulances. Those are all, you pay for them with your taxes, and then the government provides services for all. That's socialism. People who want none of that, like, then how do life would be much, different and harder to negotiate unless you were a freaking billionaire without some stuff paid for everybody's benefit from taxes.
Speaking of socialism, Sasha, just really quickly, I know that at 1:00 we've got modern investment and everything like that, but there is a TikTok buyers group that includes Oracle and Silver Lake. So I was just wondering, are you going to be investing in those companies? Because apparently they're going to be part of the new ownership of TikTok if Trump gets this deal done with G and everything. So are you thinking about getting involved in these two companies that are going to have an 80% stake in TikTok in the United States? Not the rest of TikTok around the world, but definitely in the United States.
No, I wouldn't invest in this company, and by the way, into any other companies right now, because there are troubles brewing on the stock market. And today's cut of most predicted 25 basic points, I think it will be well received by few, but most of the investors will be disappointed. Anyway, 25 basic points already baked into the stock prices today. So there is not a big relief to get this bit 25 basic points. It's already been calculated. It's already part of today's prizes. We're going to talk about that more on Investment Show. And I think that market is getting closer to a correction territory. I cannot quote exactly whether it will start today, next week, next month. I don't know that, but it's definitely getting there. And I almost liquidating almost any stock that I have, except very few. I liquidated. I have a lot of cash in the account these days.
Yeah, I agree with Sasha. I'm gonna call my guy today and see if we can move some stuff into cash, because the economy is about to fall off a table because the House just approved Trump's tariffs, and there was a chance the Supreme Court would save Trump from himself by saying you can't do these tariffs. But now that the House has approved it, I think that's less likely, and that all the tariffs I think kick in 2 weeks on October 1st, and that is going to that's what created the Great Depression. We were in a recession that started in late 1929. Then a couple of years later, they passed the Smoot-Hawley tariffs, and it turned a recession into a huge worldwide depression, the worst in history. And we're about to go into that again.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
let's talk about this.
I just want to make a clarification before you talk about whatever you want to talk about and everything. Sasha, I know we had a glitch last week, but you are still planning to do the show today at 1 o'clock, because you said tomorrow, but you did me today, right?
Oh, Investment Show is today for sure at 1 o'clock.
Okay, cool. Just want to make sure.
All right, so let's talk about this socialist New York mayor candidate's ideas. I just looked them up. And one thing he wants to do, he wants to build 200,000 new affordable and union-built housing units over the next decade through a $100 billion municipal bond investment. Well, that sounds like capitalism to me. You're paying for those units by selling bonds. You're selling $100 billion worth of bonds for people to invest in New York City. And I don't know, that doesn't sound super socialist. He wants to do away with charging people to get on city buses. Right now it costs $2.90 to ride a bus in New York City, $1.45 if you're a senior. So he says if you get rid of bus fare, people just step on the bus, step off, so the buses move faster, so they don't have to stop for people to feed money into the machines. And how much money?
Partially true, but it's one that has dealt with that now for 3 years and everything. It doesn't always work. They can sometimes still be slow, because we've had free buses here in Durham since the pandemic, and it's going to go till July or fiscal year of 2026.
So what's bad about that?
I mean, you are correct. There's nothing really bad about it, but I'm just saying because of the routes and different other things that sometimes the buses can be slow. They're not always effective in terms of their timeliness and everything. I think the bus drivers are getting paid a decent wage and everything like that, because they've been definitely trying to recruit new drivers. So but I know that the other cities around us, because they want to get some revenue, have gone back to the pay system. So I know.
Okay.
I think Raleigh.
I've ridden buses in New York City, and there are some frustrations.
Yes.
That you wait 40 minutes for a bus that's supposed to come along every 10 minutes, then all of a sudden 4 buses in a row come at once. Does free fares do anything about that? I don't know.
No, because I've seen that happen even with the free fares. So that's what
all
I'm
right.
saying.
Oh, he wants to do city-owned grocery stores to increase access to affordable food. But this is not every grocery store. This is 5 grocery stores, 1 in every borough. There will still be hundreds of other grocery stores that can charge whatever they want. So I don't know. The guy doesn't seem that wildly socialist.
But speaking of people that were painted as socialists, and I just saw this story, and I wanted y'all's thoughts, because he was a vice presidential candidate, but apparently Minnesota Governor Tim Walz has launched a campaign for a 3rd term. He said he's staying in the fight, and he is running for a 3rd term to be the Minnesota governor and everything like that. So it's just a good thing, and is this going to keep him in the national
He
spotlight?
seemed to me, but I'm a Democrat. He seems like a pretty reasonable guy. He got swift voted in the election because he left the National Guard after 20 some years, but just within a year of when we started fighting, I don't know, some frickin' war someplace, probably the Iraq War. But if you listen to him talk, he seems like a reasonable guy. He's got the right gave him the name Tampon Tim, saying that he wanted a tampon machine in every bathroom in high schools, even boys' bathrooms, which is bullshit. The law in Minnesota was that every school for kids puberty age and older had to have a place where they could get sanitary supplies, tampons and sanitary napkins. It didn't say they had to be in boys' rooms, though in some rural schools, there were tampon machines in the boys' locker rooms because the boys' locker room was used by visiting girls' teams. And they could play like volleyball or something. They said, yeah, you go use the boys' locker room. And so since those, it was just that. It was
there was a lot of misinterpretation. Hey, Sasha, I know you talked about the United States and everything along those lines in the state of the Democratic Party, but after the killing of Charlie Kirk, Obama came out and he said that the nation is in a political crisis, and he condemned the Charlie Kirk killing and called political violence a threat to all of us and everything. So I was just wondering, do you agree with him? Because he says that the president should pull people together. So I think he's thinking that Trump isn't pulling folks together and that we're in a political crisis. So do you agree with what former President Obama is saying about us being in a political crisis?
Yeah, yes, I do.
And how do you think we can get out of that political crisis?
No, it's not possible to get out of this political crisis until one of the parties will be soundly defeated in next elections, not just one, but more and many. Until such thing will happen, I think Trump will activate his National Guards. He will move the National Guards from the red state to blue states, although he chickened out from Chicago. He never done that, and I don't think he will, but he will move to Memphis. He will look to many other places. Essentially, it will be quasi-military state by the time of midterm elections, so people will be intimidated to vote or they will be unable to vote, and this is the only way how Trump can keep his House and Senate majority.
So, yeah, we are going to remain in crisis for a bunch of reasons. One is there's a ton of money keeping people pissed off. When Charlie Kirk was assassinated, he had a fortune of $12 million. It's been a week since he was murdered, and his fortune, his family, his widow, their two kids, people have donated another $7 million to him. And Fox News can pay billion-dollar settlements for not telling the truth, but Fox News they don't care. I mean, they care. Nobody wants to lose that much money, but they haven't changed their behavior because they continue to make, $100 billion a month off of cable subscribers. There's a ton of money in keeping people pissed off. Plus, we have technological disruption. With AI and other tech coming, people are going to continue to see their jobs disrupted. They're going to continue to be pissed off into the future. And yeah, I agree with Sasha that it seems really tough to get back to any kind of conciliatory politics.
Well, speaking of conciliatory politics,
one last thing. The last time America came together for a month was after 9/11, when George W. Bush's approval jumped up to 95%. But we squandered that opportunity on bullshit. We went into a war that was based on lies and was unnecessary.
Hey Rick, just really quickly, because that's going on in Minneapolis. It's going on where you are in LA. We've even got them here in North Carolina and everything. But do you think we have enough empathy for the homeless and everything? Because it says that in Minneapolis, more than a dozen were hurt in a homeless encampment shooting, and I know that there have been attempts here to attack the homeless, and y'all are going to try to move the homeless before the LA.
Yeah, so, all right, okay, so no, we don't have enough empathy for the homeless. At the same time, the homeless can be scary and a pain in the ass. In San Francisco, the Republicans talk about all the poop in the streets. Well, LA has 73,000 homeless people at least, and they have to poop someplace. And yeah, they have encampments all over the place. And sometimes when my wife and I go out, we'll run into a crazy person yelling in the street, and then we have to park someplace else because we don't want the crazy person who's waving around some piece of metal to beat the crap out of our car. They need empathy. We also need to figure out how to do something about them. And we can't do anything about the crazy people on the street because the law is you can't hold somebody against their will unless they've broken a law more than 72 hours. It's the 5150 hold. Everybody, there was a Van Halen album title, 5150. And until we figure out laws that address this, we continue to have this issue.
Hey, Sasha, you said, and I've actually one of our other shows mentioned it as well because they didn't think that Chicago or Detroit would put up with it. But Governor J.B. Pritzker says President Donald Trump is losing it after his latest comment about Chicago and bringing the National Guard to that particular area. So do you think that that's an area that he will never try to attempt because those are very strong Democratic areas and everything, meaning Illinois and Michigan, or is he going to try to be bold enough to go into these big Democratic strongholds?
Well, I don't understand why Democrats don't employ a very simple tactics against Trump just by saying the truth, that this is a convicted felon, that this is a fraudster, a rapist, all that has been established in courts. And what I understand that there's many Republicans think that way, but they're afraid to say it. What are the Democrats are being afraid of? I don't understand that. And another thing is, if you can make Trump a laughing stock, he is pathetic. He is so stupid. So the easiest way is to dethrone him, is to laugh at him. And that's what are doing our friends in UK.
So the person who's really doing that among the Democrats is Newsom, who yesterday made fun of Trump.
He wasn't the only one that made fun of him yesterday. Governor Shapiro out of Pennsylvania slammed the Oval Office's cherry picking of recent.
So what Newsom said is, go take your dementia meds, Grandpa. But the deal is with Trump is he's learned he can do whatever he wants, and it won't change his approval. It won't get him in trouble. The people who hate him will continue to hate him regardless of what he does. The people who love him will continue to love him. So he's learned he might as well do whatever the F he wants, and that's what he's been doing.
Yeah, we've definitely been doing that.
And yeah, the Democrats who are not in power have been taking it easy, which is finally getting him in trouble. And people are pushing them to do something, even if they fail, even if they lose votes in the House, at least hold the votes and at least get up there and say stuff. And, I heard Trump talk to the press for like 10 minutes yesterday, and he does not sound like he's falling into dementia. He sounds like a guy who's bullshitting, but who's bullshitted for his entire life. He says whatever he wants, doesn't have to be true, whatever he thinks will give him a momentary advantage, and he'll just, but he's not falling apart. He's not losing it. Any health issues that he has can probably be handled by having the best doctors in the world. So he probably will live out his term. His brain probably won't get any shittier than it is right now. and
Yeah, but he's got all these other crazy people with him and everything. Because apparently, Attorney General Pam Bondi has said the Department of Justice will be targeting people who use hate speech. Or how you target folks that use
Yeah,
hate
but
speech.
how do you get rid of her? How do you get rid of RFK Jr.? Nobody's willing to do that. The Congress, at least until we get a Democratic majority in one of the houses, is fine. They'll make noise about how they don't like Kash Patel
Right.
incompetently running the FBI, but nobody is trying to. People say you should resign, you should be fired, but the Congress won't call for that as long as there's a Republican majority. There's no recourse in terms of in terms of getting the people, the incompetent people, out of their jobs.
Yeah, but Rick, you even mentioned those boats, and apparently there was a third boat, the drug boat, alleged drug boat. And even GOP officials are saying that they fear U.S. strikes on alleged drug smugglers aren't legal because there's been no evidence that they were actually drug smugglers, and you're just targeting these folks.
There's also they were also in the middle of the ocean, the middle of the Caribbean. There's no definitive evidence they were headed to the United States.
Right.
And but who's going to stop Trump from doing it? Even so, and Venezuela's pissed. What if is Venezuela going to start firing missiles at our ships? Probably not.
Right.
But there's nothing to get Trump to stop blowing up people in the middle of the ocean.
Yep. I see that image that you were talking about, Sasha, where they were beaming the Trump Epstein images onto the UK castle during the visit and everything like that. So they probably had a large size projector and were projecting on there.
But again, what does it do? The people who hate Trump continue to hate him. The people who love him continue to love him, regardless of what you project onto a castle.
Well, it depends. In UK, it's somewhat different numbers than in US. There are, I think, so 86% of the people in UK hate Trump, and only 14% probably supporting him. If that's correct.
Wow. Hey, just really quickly, and this isn't, I know it's a case from years ago, and we're going to wrap up in about 5 or 6 minutes, but it looks like Alexei Navalny's widow is saying that, contrary to what the Kremlin had said, he was actually poisoned. So definitely, I was just wondering your thoughts around this and what you're hearing from this, because apparently I think they said he had died maybe of natural causes, but now lab tests are proving that this opposition figure was poisoned. And I know that you said that that's one thing Putin likes to do, get rid of his enemies any way he can, including poison and other ways of doing that. So I was just wondering your thoughts around what the widow is saying now. Sasha?
Sorry, I don't have opinion on this piece.
No problem.
But Putin, kills people. He doesn't like them. He blows up their aircraft. He throws them out of windows. He poisons them, whether it's in Russia or it's in England. He's got operatives, and you can hire people. There's a million movies about hitmen. If you put out Putin might be the richest guy on earth, and so him offering $100,000 for somebody to poke somebody with a poisoned umbrella, which is the way a guy was killed by the Soviet Union 30 years ago.
No doubt about that and everything. How do you walk out? Because like I said, I know there've been tons of movies about this as well, but how do you walk out with $700,000 worth of gold? Because apparently that's what happened at the Paris Natural History Museum, and there were a string of similar heists. So don't they have good security in some of these foreign countries in their museums, or do they just let people just walk out?
You think your security is good until somebody figures out how to get around your security. Frickin' Charlie Kirk. They had 6 cops, not enough for a crowd of 3,000 people. They also had undercover cops in the crowd.
And
Charlie Kirk also had.
He was also wearing Kevlar.
People are debating that. Maybe he was. Doesn't matter if you get hit in the neck. He also had private security. So there were 3 different types of security there. But the guy who shot him said he'd studied the situation for a week leading up to his appearance, and he figured out a way to do it. And so gold, $700,000 worth of gold that'll fit in a small satchel. Um, and somebody figured out how to frickin' I mean, that's what heist movies are about.
Right. That's what
The people get together, they look at the security situation, and they're like, well, okay, we can't do this because of security, but we can do this.
Yep. And apparently, the other thing that we know goes on in politics and just like life in general is corruption. And apparently that's what Sudan is facing because they're being accused of systematic looting. It's already a poor nation. And I guess.
Well, hold on. Let's go. Can we go back to security for a second?
Yeah.
The best security operations have red teams. They take their best people and they split them into two parts. And they have the blue team tries to figure out ways to make things extra secure. The red team tries to figure out how to break the security, how to get around them. And so you've got people who are actively trying to do a heist who are hired by the security company. And they're like, well, we do it this way. Or maybe they even try it and they show where the deficiencies are. My brother in his last years in the Marines was part of a red team guy sitting there trying to think up how to screw up the systems in place, which is a way to strengthen the systems.
If that makes sense and everything. Only got about another 2 or 3 minutes to go and everything. But isn't systematic looting what every country does, whether they're rich or poor, and everything along those lines? So this whole notion of getting on the poor country of South Sudan for systematic looting, I'm thinking like even the powerful countries like Russia and the United States, that they do systematic looting on a regular base where the wealth is stolen at the top. So I'm going like, isn't that like just about every country in the world?
No, and it's only when people think that it gets worse and worse. The U.S. was a fairly public-spirited country at various times in the 20th century. We sent off people to fight and die and incur the huge costs of war in World War I, and then again in World War II. Before World War II started for us, we had a Lend-Lease program where we were kind of sneakily supplying the Brits with a ton of weaponry so that they could survive until we entered the war. And we sacrificed more than 400,000 young men in World War II for a war that wasn't on our continent. Mm-hmm. And not every government is trying to steal everything they can. Like Biden was accused, and still accused, of taking millions of dollars in bribes via Hunter Biden from China and other countries. And the argument against that is in the 4 years that Biden was out of politics, between when he was VP and when he became president, he and his wife made $8.5 million giving speeches and writing books. Now, why does Biden, an old man, need more than $8.5 million? Why would he take stupid, $100,000 bribes? He could make a ton of money legitimately. And so, no, Biden was not in the business of ripping off as much as he could.
Yep, and you mentioned this earlier and everything along those lines, but Sasha, but it looks like, and this will be the last thought if y'all have things around it, but we talked about Greenland and Trump wanting to go after Greenland. Well, apparently the small country of Denmark is doing some exercises in Greenland, and some people are saying that that's with Russia in mind, but also the U.S. in mind. So maybe they're going to defend against either a Russian or a U.S. attack and everything, because they're saying that it might be why they're doing these exercises in case somebody wants to come and take Greenland, which is actually their property right now.
Well, I think that Trump is so busy with many other things that he probably forgot about Greenland and Denmark and Canada and Panama Canal and almost anything. I think he has plans. I think it's becoming basically a justification of his presidency is to have a pact with Putin and possibly with BRICS and get US out of Europe, out of NATO. And he understands that by being hated all over the world, he cannot put America on top. Just too many things are happening. America today has no friends around the world, period. So he doesn't value a possible friendship with European countries because he sees that, okay, they have democratic elections every 4 years or so. So while he'll make peace and friendship with some leaders, then they might as well be re-elected. And it's much more convenient to have friendship with Putin or Xi, who are not going to be re-elected simply because there are no free elections in these countries. So he may be friends with them until such day as he'll die, because obviously he will die sooner than Putin or Xi. So until the rest of his days, he has a very stable friendship. That's where he's going. That's what he's doing.
I want to mention one thing. I talked about Biden's gravy train in the 4 years before he was president. I just read an article that the gravy train is over for Biden, that nobody wants to pay him to give speeches or write books because A, his brand is toxic, and B, people are so afraid of pissing off Trump that they don't want to hire Biden to come in and give a speech for $200,000 because Trump might freaking sue him or some crap. Yesterday at the press conference, an Australian reporter asked Trump a question he didn't like, and Trump said, "You better watch out. You're getting Australia in trouble." Which the implication being that if he kept asking questions, Trump was going to raise tariffs on Australia. So nobody wants to F around with Trump.
No, nobody wants to do that. But right now we're going to get on out of here and not F around with our time frame and everything like that. And we'll be back at 1 o'clock with Sasha, Milan, and maybe Jim Eid for Modern Investment. So we'll see them at 1 o'clock. So right now, let's get on out of here.